After the age of 60, the most important change in the body is not the visible loss of muscle or the stiffness in the joints, but the quiet weakening of communication between the brain and the body. Movement is no longer automatic. It becomes cautious, fragmented, less confident. Japan's oldest doctors noticed that when older adults struggled with walking or balance, it was rarely because their legs were too weak to move. Instead, the problem was that the brain was receiving unclear information about where the body was in space. Every step depends on sensory signals traveling upward from the feet, ankles, knees, and hips, merging with information from the eyes and inner ear. When these signals fade or become delayed, the brain responds with hesitation, and hesitation changes the way a person walks, stands, and lives. The exercise at the heart of this teaching restores that lost conversation. It slows the body down enough for awareness to return. In modern neuroscience, this awareness is called proprioception, the internal sense that tells you where your limbs are without needing to look at them. Proprioception weakens with age not because it is designed to fail, but because it is rarely challenged in a mindful way. Fast movements bypass it, and sitting for long periods silences it. Slow, controlled movement brings it back online. When the foot presses into the ground and weight shifts deliberately from heel to toe, thousands of nerve endings wake up. The brain begins to map the body again, not as a fragile structure, but as a responsive system. This is why mastering a single, deliberate movement can transform walking more effectively than dozens of random exercises. The nervous system prefers clarity over complexity. When movement is simple and repeated daily, neural pathways strengthen. The brain learns to predict and trust the body's responses again. Studies in aging populations show that balance improves faster when exercises emphasize control rather than speed, because the brain has time to process feedback and correct errors. Each repetition becomes a lesson in stability. Each moment of balance becomes proof that the body still knows how to hold itself upright. There is also a deeper biological rhythm at play. Slow movement engages the parts of the brain responsible for planning and coordination rather than reflex alone. This engagement keeps neural circuits active that are otherwise lost to disuse. In practical terms, this means fewer missteps, better posture, and smoother transitions from standing to walking. What feels like a gentle exercise is actually high-level neurological training. It teaches the body how to respond to uneven ground, sudden turns, and small obstacles that often cause falls later in life. Japan's longevity culture places great respect on this idea because it aligns with how the body naturally ages. Strength may decline gradually, but coordination can be preserved for decades when it is used correctly. The oldest doctors observed that elders who moved slowly but confidently remained mobile longer than those who rushed or avoided movement altogether. The goal was never to move more, but to move with intention. Intention sharpens sensation, and sensation keeps the brain engaged. As this communication improves, something subtle but powerful happens. Fear begins to loosen its grip. The brain no longer treats movement as a threat. Muscles stop bracing unnecessarily, joints move more freely, and energy is conserved. Walking becomes smoother not because the legs suddenly grow stronger, but because the brain trusts them again. This trust is the foundation of independence, because every daily action depends on it, from stepping out of bed to crossing a room without hesitation. After 60, the body no longer responds best to force, speed, or exhaustion. What it responds to is precision, patience, and steady load. This is where the second insight behind this exercise reveals its power. Strength in later life is not about how hard a muscle can contract for a brief moment, but about how reliably it can support the body through movement. The muscles of the legs are not designed only to push or lift, they are designed to hold, stabilize, and guide weight safely from one position to another. When strength training ignores this reality, it often leaves older adults feeling sore, unstable, or discouraged. The exercise taught by Japan's oldest doctors strengthens the legs by respecting how aging muscle fibers function. With age, the body relies more heavily on slow-twitch muscle fibers, the ones responsible for endurance, posture, and balance. These fibers are richly supplied with blood vessels and respond best to sustained, controlled effort rather than explosive force. Slow, weight-bearing movement activates these fibers deeply, sending signals that preserve muscle mass without overwhelming the joints. Modern physiology confirms that this type of loading stimulates muscle protein synthesis while minimizing inflammatory stress, which is crucial for older bodies that recover more slowly. There is also an important joint protective effect. Knees and hips do not fail simply because of age, they fail because the muscles around them stop sharing the workload evenly. Fast or heavy movements often cause dominant muscles to take over while smaller stabilizing muscles remain inactive. Over time, this imbalance increases joint strain. In contrast, slow movements distribute tension across the entire chain of muscles surrounding the joint. The quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, and deep hip stabilizers all contribute in harmony. This balanced engagement reduces pressure on cartilage and ligaments, allowing joints to move more freely and with less discomfort. Another critical factor is tendon health. Tendons stiffen with age, and stiffness reduces the smooth transfer of force between muscle and bone. Sudden or jerky movements can overload stiff tendons, increasing the risk of injury. Slow, controlled exercises gradually restore elasticity by gently stretching and loading the tendon at the same time. This process improves force transmission and resilience, making everyday actions like climbing stairs or rising from a chair feel easier and safer. Over weeks and months, tendons adapt quietly, often without the person realizing how much stronger they have become. From a neurological perspective, slow strengthening also enhances motor control. The brain learns how to recruit the right amount of muscle at the right time. This efficiency matters more than raw strength. A leg that can generate moderate force with perfect timing is far more useful than one that is strong but poorly coordinated. Studies in older adults show that controlled resistance training improves walking speed and stability more effectively than high-intensity routines. The body moves better because it moves smarter. What made this approach so valued among Japan's oldest physicians was its sustainability. They observed that elders were far more likely to continue exercises that felt respectful rather than punishing. Consistency, not intensity, became the true medicine. A movement practiced daily becomes part of the nervous system's baseline. Muscles stay awake, joints stay nourished, and circulation remains active. Strength is maintained not as a temporary peak, but as a quiet, dependable presence that supports life's ordinary movements. As strength returns in this balanced way, confidence follows naturally. The body no longer feels fragile under its own weight. Each step feels supported from the ground up, not forced from the top down. This kind of strength does not announce itself loudly, but it shows itself in smoother walking, steadier posture, and the ease with which the body carries itself through the day. With advancing age, many people unknowingly begin to move under a constant layer of tension. The shoulders rise slightly, the breath becomes shallow, and the legs stiffen before the body even begins to walk. This tension is not a personal failure. It is the nervous system responding to uncertainty. When balance feels unreliable, the brain shifts into a protective mode, increasing muscle tone and alertness in an attempt to prevent falls. Over time, this state becomes habitual, turning simple movements into effortful ones. The third insight behind this exercise lies in its ability to reverse this pattern by calming the nervous system rather than stimulating it. Slow, deliberate movement paired naturally with breathing sends a powerful signal of safety to the brain. The parasympathetic branch of the nervous system, often called the rest and repair system, becomes more active when motion is smooth and controlled. Heart rate decreases slightly, blood pressure stabilizes, and muscles receive a message that they do not need to brace. This physiological shift is not subtle, it directly changes how efficiently the body moves. Relaxed muscles contract more fully and release more completely, allowing joints to glide instead of grind. In contrast, tense muscles restrict motion and consume more energy, making walking feel tiring even over short distances. The exercise emphasized by Japan's oldest doctors naturally synchronizes movement with breath without requiring conscious effort. As the body lowers and rises slowly, breathing deepens reflexively. This deeper breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, a major pathway connecting the brain to the heart, lungs, and digestive system. Activation of this nerve improves heart rate variability, a marker of resilience and adaptability in the aging body. When heart rhythm becomes more flexible, circulation improves, delivering oxygen and nutrients to working muscles more efficiently. The legs feel lighter not because they are stronger, but because they are better supplied. There is also a psychological component that cannot be separated from the biology. When movement feels calm, fear recedes. The brain stops scanning constantly for threats, and attention returns to the present moment. This shift reduces the mental load associated with walking, which is especially important for older adults who may worry about falling. Research shows that fear of falling alone can alter gait, shortening stride length and increasing instability. By practicing movement in a calm, controlled environment, the brain relearns that motion does not have to be rushed or defended. Confidence grows quietly through repetition. Calm movement also improves coordination. When the nervous system is overactivated, signals fire too quickly and imprecisely. Muscles may contract out of sequence, disrupting balance. A calmer state allows signals to travel with better timing. The feet land more evenly, weight transfers smoothly, and posture aligns naturally. This coordination reduces unnecessary strain on the knees and hips, which often bear the consequences of poorly regulated movement. What feels like relaxation is actually optimization. From a long-term health perspective, calming the nervous system through movement has systemic benefits. Chronic tension is linked to inflammation, poor sleep, and slower recovery. Gentle, rhythmic exercise lowers stress hormones like cortisol, which in excess can break down muscle tissue and impair immune function. By keeping stress responses in check, the body preserves strength and heals more efficiently. This is one reason elders who practice calm daily movement often report better sleep and improved energy levels throughout the day. Japan's approach to longevity recognizes that vitality is not sustained through constant effort, but through balance. The body thrives when stimulation and rest are woven together. This exercise embodies that philosophy by making calmness an active practice rather than a passive state. Each slow repetition reinforces the idea that the body can move safely, steadily, and without urgency. Over time, this message becomes ingrained, reshaping how the nervous system responds not just during exercise, but during every step taken in daily life. Independence in later life is not measured by how much weight a person can lift or how many exercises they can perform, but by how easily they can move through ordinary moments. Standing up from a chair, stepping onto a curb, turning while walking, or carrying groceries across a room all rely on a delicate integration of strength, balance, and timing. The fourth insight behind this exercise is that it trains these real-life movements directly, rather than isolating muscles in ways that rarely transfer beyond the gym. Japan's oldest doctors paid close attention to this distinction because they understood that function, not fitness, determines quality of life. This single movement mirrors the mechanics of daily tasks. As the body lowers and rises in a controlled way, it rehearses the exact pattern needed to sit, stand, and walk. The hips learn to hinge properly, the knees learn to track smoothly, and the feet learn to support weight evenly. This repetition builds what scientists call motor memory, the brain's ability to execute a movement automatically and efficiently. With age, motor memory becomes more valuable than raw strength because it reduces the cognitive effort required to move. The less the brain has to think about movement, the more natural and confident that movement becomes. Functional training also protects against sudden challenges. Life rarely moves in straight lines or predictable patterns. Uneven ground, unexpected obstacles, or quick changes in direction demand a body that can adjust instantly. This exercise strengthens the stabilizing muscles that respond first in these situations. These muscles, often overlooked in conventional training, act like internal shock absorbers. When they are active and responsive, they prevent excessive strain on joints and reduce the risk of falls. Research in geriatric movement science consistently shows that exercises emphasizing balance and controlled weight shifts improve reaction time and postural stability more than strength training alone. Another essential aspect is how this movement trains transitions, the moments when falls are most likely to occur. Moving from sitting to standing, or from standing to walking, requires precise coordination. The center of gravity shifts, and the body must reorganize itself quickly. Many older adults feel unsteady during these transitions, not because they are weak, but because they lack practice in managing weight transfer. This exercise rehearses those transitions slowly and safely, teaching the body how to move through them with confidence. Over time, what was once a moment of hesitation becomes fluid and predictable. Functional movement also preserves energy. When the body moves efficiently, it wastes less effort compensating for poor alignment or delayed muscle activation. This efficiency is especially important after 60, when fatigue can limit activity and lead to further deconditioning. By reinforcing proper movement patterns, the exercise reduces unnecessary strain on the cardiovascular system. Walking becomes less tiring, allowing individuals to stay active longer, which in turn supports circulation, metabolism, and mental well-being. From a psychological standpoint, functional competence restores a sense of agency. Being able to move without assistance reinforces dignity and self-trust. Japan's longevity culture places high value on maintaining autonomy, not as a symbol of independence from others, but as a way of staying engaged with life. When movement feels reliable, people are more willing to leave their homes, socialize, and participate in meaningful activities. This engagement has measurable health benefits, including lower rates of depression and cognitive decline. What makes this exercise especially powerful is its simplicity. Because it resembles everyday actions, it does not feel artificial or intimidating. This familiarity encourages daily practice, and daily practice is where transformation occurs. Small improvements accumulate quietly, strengthening the foundation of movement that supports every other aspect of health. Over time, the body does not just become stronger, it becomes more capable, more adaptable, and more at ease navigating the world as it is encountered each day. The final and perhaps most profound insight behind this exercise is that it changes how a person sees their own body and future. Aging is often accompanied by an invisible shift in identity, where individuals begin to view their bodies as fragile, unreliable, or past their prime. This belief does not remain abstract, it shapes behavior, posture, and movement. When the brain expects limitation, it subtly restricts motion to avoid perceived danger. Over time, this self-protective pattern accelerates decline. Japan's oldest doctors understood that preserving mobility was as much a psychological task as a physical one, and that a single well-chosen movement could quietly reshape that inner narrative. Each time this exercise is practiced, the body delivers evidence that it is still capable of learning and adapting. The nervous system responds quickly to success, even small success. Standing steadily, shifting weight smoothly, or completing a controlled movement without discomfort sends a signal to the brain that competence is intact. These signals accumulate. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, does not vanish with age, it simply requires clearer input and more repetition. Through daily practice, the brain updates its expectations, replacing caution with confidence and hesitation with readiness. This shift in perception has measurable effects on movement quality. When confidence increases, muscle activation becomes more efficient. The body no longer braces unnecessarily or moves defensively. Stride length improves, posture becomes more upright, and coordination sharpens. These changes are often attributed solely to physical conditioning, but they are deeply influenced by mindset. Studies in motor learning show that expectation alters performance. Believing that movement is safe and manageable enhances balance and reaction time. The exercise becomes a form of embodied reassurance, teaching the body and mind to trust one another again. There is also a social dimension to this transformation. When older adults feel confident in their movement, they are more likely to engage with others and with their environment. They walk more, participate in activities, and maintain routines that support mental and emotional health. Isolation, which is a significant risk factor for decline in later life, often begins with reduced mobility. By restoring ease of movement, this exercise indirectly supports connection and purpose. The body becomes a bridge back to the world rather than a barrier. From a biological standpoint, increased activity feeds back into the system in a positive loop. Movement stimulates circulation, which supports brain health. Improved brain function enhances coordination and decision-making, which further improves movement. This cycle stands in contrast to the downward spiral of inactivity, where fear leads to less movement leads to weakness, and weakness reinforces fear. The exercise interrupts this cycle gently, without force or pressure, making it accessible even to those who have felt discouraged by traditional fitness approaches. Japan's philosophy of longevity emphasizes continuity rather than reinvention. The goal is not to become someone new, but to remain oneself with as much vitality as possible. This exercise fits seamlessly into daily life, requiring no special equipment or environment. Its simplicity reinforces the idea that health is maintained through small, consistent actions rather than dramatic interventions. Over time, the practice becomes less about the movement itself and more about the message it conveys, that the body is still responsive, still capable, and still worthy of care. As this message takes root, behavior changes naturally. People move more because movement feels rewarding rather than risky. The future no longer appears as a narrowing path but as a space that can still be explored. This quiet confidence reshapes daily choices, posture, and outlook, allowing aging to unfold not as a retreat, but as a continuation of growth and engagement with life.